We are live. Hey, how is it going? Lee Hayward here with the Friday the 13th Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat. It's bound to happen. You're bound to get a Friday the 13th in there. Hopefully you're not superstitious. I'm not. So I'm feeling optimistic. Today is going to be a good chat. And the way these video chats work is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour, answering any questions that you may have with regards to building muscle, losing fat, fitness, nutrition, any topics related to that. If you have any questions or topics of discussion that you would like to discuss, feel free to type those into our chat window, and I'll do the best that I can to help you out over the course of our chat today. And if you are brand new to these video chats, I want to welcome you. It's always nice to have new people joining in. And if you're a regular and you're coming back, it's nice to have you returning back. So I'm just going to give my little lens here a wipe off. So I'm going to disappear for a second while I just wipe off the lens there. Make sure it's nice and clear, no smudges on it. There we go. Things coming through. So, is it coming through loud and clear? All right, Dan says it is. He says, I like the video because it's loud and it's clear. Well, good. I appreciate it. And if it is loud and it is clear and you do like the video, give it a like. All right, so I've got a couple questions that were sent in earlier that I'm going to address during our chat today. And, of course, anything that you would like to discuss, we can address it as well. And today I am wearing my Bob Ross t-shirt. For those of you who remember Bob Ross from back in the day, I don't know if you can see it there, but it says, no mistakes, just happy accidents. And that's my philosophy, right? I love that. No mistakes, just happy accidents. So we're not going to have any mistakes today, but we may have a few happy little accidents along the way. All right, so what do we got? We got Dan joining in. We've got Lee Dunnigan joining in. I'm just going to wait for a minute for a few people to join on board here. Lee's saying, congrats on your bike ride win. And yeah, last week, you may recall, I've mentioned that I was going to be competing in a bicycle race. It's the Cove Classic. It's a Newfoundland bicycle race. It's been on the go for years and years and years. I don't know when I think it started back in the 70s, this particular race, and it's kind of like an annual event. So anyway, I competed in the Cove Classic bicycle race this past Sunday. And I went into that race just hoping for the best, right? Like hoping for the best, wanted to go in there and give it my all, set a personal best. And I ended up blowing my expectations out of the water. I really did. I entered the category B, which is the way it works is it's a big loop. It's a 28-kilometer loop, just shy of 28 kilometers, 27 point something kilometers, round off, 28-kilometer loop. And there's three categories. So Group A, which is, the top level riders, they do 3 loops. Group B, which is what I registered for, 2 loops. And Group C, which is the novice, easy class, weekend warrior class, if you will, do 1 loop. Anyway, I registered for the B category, 2 loops of the Pooch Cove Classic. And long story short, I gave it 110%, and I ended up actually winning my division in that race. And I blew my expectations out of the water. I mean, it's something that I didn't expect it. Like, I was just hoping if I could finish mid-pack, like that would be a victory. That was my plan going into it. And I was feeling good the day of the race. I had peaked, and prepared in advance well, and everything just kind of like the stars aligned, so to speak. And when I got going there, I ended up catching one of the lead groups, and I hung with one of the lead groups, the lead A category groups, and I stayed in their rotation throughout the ride, and I managed to hold my own there and cross the finish line first in the category B division. And it was a very significant win. Like the next guy who crossed the finish line in my category, like I was about a 2-minute lead on second place. So it was pretty darn impressive. And I was like a kid in the candy store. I just, blew my mind, blew my expectations out of the water because I was not expecting to win. But somehow I dug deep and just, gave it 110%, and the stars aligned and things worked out well. So I was super pleased, super happy with that. And so that was a big feather in my hat. I was not expecting that, but it was a nice, pleasant surprise for sure. So yeah, I mean, I'll be doing some more events like that. Got some more big bike rides planned, and I'll be sharing more about that this year. But that's one of the things I'm really prioritizing now with my training. I mean, it's something I really love, cycling, because I just love the outdoors. I love the adventure. I love the challenge, and I love the camaraderie. and it's just something that I'm really prioritizing. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm still focusing on weight training as well. Like I still go to the gym, but it's kind of switched turns now where like the cycling is now my priority, and then the weight training is something that I do kind of secondary. And I do the weight training as kind of like active recovery and mobility and strengthening some of the weak links that don't get targeted with cycling. Because whenever you do repetitive movement sports, cycling or running or anything along those lines, you need to strengthen all those weak links, because you're overworking a lot of muscles, but then you're underworking some other ones. So when I'm in the gym now, I'm really focusing on strengthening my core and doing a lot of mobility work, work for the neck and the upper back and all these areas that are getting neglected while you're cycling, or areas that are getting repetitive movement strain, strengthening the supporting muscles to help with those areas. So that's my main focus now, and it's something that I really enjoy. So over the last couple of years, it's just gradually been taking more priority, and I really enjoy it. So wanted to share that with you. But again, thank you, Lee, for the congratulations. Much appreciated. We've got Vadim joining in. We've got Eagle-Eyed John joining in. What else do you say? We've got GS93. Yeah, Vadim's joining in. Baby Boomer Fitness joining in. Welcome, guys. And if you're brand new to the video chat, feel free to type in. Like if this is your first time ever tuning into one of these live Total Fitness Q&A, let me know in the comment section there. Just type your name, where you're from. And if this is your first time, you're new, type the letter N in there. N for new. And again, I want to welcome you, and I'll give you a priority. And if you have any questions or topics of discussion, our new viewers always get priority. Not that I'm neglecting the regular viewers, but hey, we want to welcome, open arms, welcome, roll out the red carpet for our new viewers. Now, before I get into that, I do have a question that came in, and this one was sent in right after last week's chat by Mark. Mark's a regular. Normally, Mark ends up catching the replays of these, but he wanted to ask a question, so he sent it in through, sent me an email. And if you do have anything that you want to discuss via email, whether you want to elaborate on questions that I'm talking about here during our chat, or if you have any specific questions or you need some help with your own training and nutrition, feel free to email me. And I've got my email address in the description below. It's leeh@leehayward.com. Feel free to email me or friend me up over on Facebook, and we can chat over there. But Mark was asking, he says he bought some smart scales that measure body fat percentage, muscle mass percentage, etc. He says, I know they're not 100% accurate, but I'm only interested in the trends. He says, do you use one, and do you know when is the best time to use it? If you can answer this on your live video, please let me know. All right, I will. Well, I'm doing it right now. All right, smart scales. These have come a long way in recent years. Now, I'm going to kind of just share my feedback when it comes to some of the different scales. Like, what he's referring to is the scales that not only measure your weight, which, scales been doing that since the beginning of scales. That's the whole purpose of it, is to measure weight. But now they've got these sensors built into them where they can track your body composition. And some of them will even go so far as to tracking, okay, how much fat mass you have, how much lean mass you have, and give you your body composition, the breakdown of muscle and fat and water and all that kind of stuff. So they've come a long way. Now, my early experiences with them, I remember this is 10 plus years ago. We ended up getting one of these, smart scales or body fat scales. And I got it and I stepped on it, and it gave me a ridiculously high number. I mean, I knew I wasn't super lean, but I wasn't as heavy as what that scale was saying. And then my wife got on it and she tested it. And then I said, I got to try it again. So I got on it and tested it again. And we were kind of working back and forth. And even from just test to test, we were getting different readings. So I remember like one time I stepped on it and I got like 30% body fat, whatever, just something like that. And then like 2 minutes later, I step on it again and it's coming up, oh, you're 22% body fat now. And I'm like, man, it's all over the place. Like, it was varying like massive numbers just from test to test within a short time frame. So, I mean, I know I didn't drop 8% body fat in 2 minutes, right? So, I mean, it was given a lot of mixed readings. We ended up returning it because, it wasn't very reliable. Now, I don't know, maybe it was a dud or whatever, but I've heard kind of mixed reviews back in the day that a lot of these electrical scales and testers weren't that accurate. But they've come a long way. And I know a lot of people now who use them, like several of my coaching students use them, and they get very reliable and consistent results. Now, as far as reliability is concerned, take that with a grain of salt. The consistency is what you want to focus on, because all body fat tests, whether you get a DEXA scan, an underwater weighing, a body fat caliper test, or electrical body scan test, or whatever, they're all going to have their pros and cons, and they're all going to give varying readings. Like a DEXA scan may give you a lower number than an underwater weighing, and a skin fold caliper may give you a lower number than an electrical body analysis or whatever. Like the numbers themselves may vary, but what we're looking for is not so much getting hung up on the specific number or the specific percentage, but looking at the consistency. So if you can get a method of testing your body fat and your body composition that is consistent and reliable when it comes to consistency, that's the most important thing, because now you can use it to monitor progress. And that's all we really care about, is progress. Like, who cares what the number on the scale is if you're not happy with how your body looks? Like, if the scale says you're 10% body fat, but you look in the mirror and you say, I don't like the way I look, I still got a roll of fat hanging over my belly or whatever, like, you're not happy. Or vice versa. If the scale says you're 20% body fat and you got lean defined abs, and you look in the mirror and you say, hey, I look pretty good, I'm content with how I look, I'm happy with me, then who cares? It's all about how you look. And even when it comes to like physique competitions and stuff like that, it's not like the judges are getting up there with skin fold calipers and scales and body analysis. They look at you like, who looks the best. That's all that really matters. So it's about the look. Now, it's nice to back up the look with concrete numbers, because when you're seeing yourself day to day, it's hard to visually monitor progress by just how you look. Now, don't get me wrong, progress pictures is an important part of progress tracking, and I do encourage my coaching students to take progress pictures. We usually do it every month, and then month to month to month, when you're taking progress pictures, you should see some noticeable change as those pictures progress. But in the moment, it's really hard to see those changes. So that's where it's nice to have some concrete numbers to back it up. And if you have some sort of scale that is accurate and reliable for measuring not only your weight, but your body composition, then that's a great tool to have. But it's not necessary. I mean, you can get by with simple tools like a skin fold caliper, tape measure, an old-fashioned scale that just monitors body weight. Like, those things are good as well. And in my case, when I'm getting ready for bodybuilding competitions, or when I'm really prioritizing fat loss, I focus on body weight, I focus on my waistline measurement, I focus on my skin fold measurement, and just my strength and energy in general, how I feel and how my workouts and performance is going. So I'll give you an example. If the weight is going down, like losing a pound a week, like, that's a really good progress. If I'm losing a pound a week, that's usually really good. And then I want to back that up by measuring my waistline. So I usually take the circumference of my waist with a tape measure right around where my pants, the hip line. And then I also measure right around the belly button. And I take those two measurements and I just monitor those. And I want to see some progress. So, I mean, if the waist is getting smaller, like if you drop a quarter of an inch off your waist, that's progress. That's a good sign. And then I also back it up with skin fold calipers, just those cheap little plastic skin fold calipers. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. And I measure the skin fold thickness 1 inch above my hip bone. And I also measure it right next to my navel, right next to my belly button. Then the one right next to the belly button, like, that's the fat magnet for most guys. Like, that's where you're going to pinch an inch, or in some cases, you're going to pinch multiple inches. Like, that's where most guys store a lot of the fat, right around the belly button area. But I track those measurements, the skin fold on the right above the hip bone and right next to the belly button, and I want to see those numbers going down. So, like, if I can see, like, the skin fold is a millimeter thinner than it was before, then I know I'm on the right track. And as long as those numbers are moving in the right direction, body weight's moving in the right direction, the circumference is moving in the right direction, skin fold measurements moving in the right direction, I'm on the right track. And then if we can back that up with, I'm actually feeling strong and energetic in the gym, then I know it's primarily body fat that I'm losing and not lean muscle. When you start to go from lean to ripped, like in the case of a bodybuilder or a fitness model or a photo shoot or something like that, and you're getting like really depleted down to single digit body fat, a lot of times you'll end up sacrificing strength and muscle to get ultra lean. And yes, it looks cool and it's required to get that ultra lean look, but from a practical point of view, it's not necessary and it's not fun. That's when you go from the enjoyable, sustainable fat loss to suffering it out fat loss. And it's suffer it out approach, getting down into those in single digits. For most people, you got to suffer it out, and it's not sustainable. It's kind of like a short-term thing that you're just kind of shooting for, not something you're going to sustain for life. But that's kind of an overview of how I go about it. As far as when to use it, the best time, I usually do my measurements first thing in the morning after I use the bathroom before I eat or drink anything. I just want to have that stable time and consistency. So like when I'm taking my measurements and skin folds and all that, first thing in the morning after you use the bathroom before you eat or drink. And this way my stomach is flat from an overnight fast. It's not distended from any food or water. And it's usually going to give me the most accurate measurements. And I try to just be relaxed. Like when I'm taking the circumference measurement, it's not like I'm blowing my stomach out or sucking it in. I just let my stomach relax, and relax when it's empty. And it's usually the most consistent and gives the most reliable measurements. And same with the body weight. Like generally speaking, your fasted morning low is going to be your lowest body weight. Now, it may vary depending on your activity level. Like if you do a really hard workout midday, you may sweat and deplete yourself and be actually lower than your fasted morning low. But for most people, your fasted morning low weight is the ideal time to do these measurements and track your weight and all that stuff. And you just want to be consistent with the variables, and then look at the feedback and the data. And I would recommend that as far as weight tracking, do the weight tracking every day. So with body weight, measure it every single day, because your weight's going to fluctuate naturally based on food and water and glycogen and how much exercise and stress levels. Like there's a lot of variables that can impact your weight, and it's not all losing fat and building muscle. There's a lot of food and fluid manipulation that's causing your weight to fluctuate up and down. So we want to look at the general trend. So I generally recommend my coaching students weigh yourself every single day and then just jot it down in a little journal. So like Monday morning, I'm 175 pounds. Tuesday morning, 177 pounds. Wednesday morning, I was 174 pounds. Thursday morning, 176, whatever. Like just write it all down. And then at the end of the week, add those numbers up, divide it by 7, get your average weight for the week. And then that's what you'll use as your benchmark. That's your weight, if you will. It's the average for the week. And we just want to see those averages going down. That's what we're looking for. Don't get alarmed by a short-term fluctuation, either high or low, because they're going to happen, right? Like if you are not feeling particularly hungry and you don't eat a lot, or you let yourself get a bit dehydrated or whatever, you're going to probably hit a new low. If you overeat a bit too much, or you consume too much sodium and you're retaining a bit of water, you're probably going to hit a temporary high. So there's going to be highs and lows. We want to look at the average. So that's why I recommend daily weighing. And as far as the body fat testing and the measurements, once a week is more than enough, or even every couple weeks for that matter, but somewhere in that range, because those numbers are going to be much slower to change, whereas the weight is going to be frequent, and we want to average it out. All right, so that was that question. Mark had one more question there. He said, and another question, do you believe in stretching before or after a workout? And he says, I once seen a video where Dorian Yates was saying if you stretch before, it negates gains. But I find if I stretch my pecs before benching, my shoulders hurt way less afterwards. All right, great point there. And I'm going to address both schools of thought, because what Dorian Yates was saying, and Dorian Yates knows a thing or two about bodybuilding, right? Former Mr. Olympia, best in the world at one point. He knows a thing or two about bodybuilding. And still am. I'm a huge bodybuilding fan, a huge Dorian fan. And I even like how he's transitioned his life after bodybuilding. I really have a lot of respect for the guy, and how open and transparent and just no BS he is. Right. There's some really cool documentaries on him done with London Real. If you haven't checked him out, just search for him. It's worth watching. If you're a Dorian Yates fan, it's certainly worth watching. But to get to the point you're mentioning there, generally speaking, with stretching, you want to do it after the workout, right? Most of your stretching, like the static stretching, any deep stretching, stuff like that, you do it after the workout. And there's a couple reasons. One, after the workout, the muscles are pumped full of blood, and you're going to get the most benefit from the stretching themselves. And it's not going to have any impact on your strength, because what stretching does is it takes some of the tension out of the muscles, and it can actually reduce your strength, your peak power strength, temporarily, right? So, I mean, if you did a big, like, let me give you some examples. Like, let's just say you stretch out your back and your hamstrings and your glutes and everything else before a heavy deadlift, then what happens is all those muscles where you want to generate that much tension and power, you've just stretched them out and you actually minimize some of the peak power output that you're able to generate. Whereas you would be better off doing the stretching afterwards, after you've already done the heavy lifting, then do the stretching. And I personally like it because when you work out, the muscles are pumped full of blood, they're warmed up, and they're better able to stretch because it's easier to stretch a warm muscle than it is a cold muscle. Like, I've visualized the muscles like rubber bands. If you have a rubber band and you put it in the freezer and it gets cold and then you try and stretch it, it's more likely to tear or snap versus if you have a rubber band that's at room temperature, or if it's even in a warm environment, then it's more pliable and more flexible. Muscles are kind of the same way. When they're warmed up, they're more pliable and flexible and less likely to tear. So you get better benefit from the stretching. However, you brought up an important point there where you said if you stretch before you bench press, you said if you stretch your pecs, your shoulders hurt way less. You need to warm up before you do your weight training, and you can do some mobility exercises, which may include some dynamic stretching, but I wouldn't recommend deep static stretching. So in my case, when I'm part of my pre-workout routine, I do a lot of dynamic movements, arm circles, rotator cuff rotations. I even do like chest flies with just the weight of my arms. And I do a lot of different movement patterns. And I do various like trunk twists and deep knee bends and things like that. Like, I have this whole routine where I take my body through prior to a workout. And what I'll do is I'll actually, in the description of this video, I'll post a link to it afterwards when it's the timestamps and that are posted up. But if you just go to my YouTube channel, Lee Hayward, and search for Lee Hayward warm-up routine, you should be able to find it. But it's a dynamic warm-up where I basically go through some dynamic stretches and warm-up exercises for all the major muscle groups, starting with the neck and working the way down. And this helps to limber up all the joints, tendons, and ligaments and take the kinks out so that when you actually get into your weight training exercises, you're more loose, limber, and mobile and able to do those exercises more comfortably. Because if you have any tension in the muscles, maybe there's some scar tissue or some tension, over the years you built up in the shoulders, then you need to loosen that up. And you can do some active, mobility work and dynamic stretching to loosen it up. But I wouldn't recommend deep static stretching because that's, again, you're stretching a cold muscle and you take some of the strength and power out of the movement. But again, you got to look at it from the bigger picture, right? Like, if this actually helps you to perform better, then maybe you need to do some light stretching beforehand because of the tension that you have in your body and the mobility issues. But if you can get away with just some mobility work alone and that works, then maybe that's what you want to focus on. Now, in Mark's case, I don't know specifically what he means by stretching. Like, when people say stretching, like that could be like a simple little, simple stretch, or maybe what he considers stretching is actually some dynamic stretching or mobility work, or it could be some super deep static stretching routine. So, I mean, like, there's a big stretching is a broad category. So I don't know what he considers stretching here, but bottom line, you don't want to do any deep stretching prior to the workout. You always want to save that deep static stretching for afterwards. All right, so hopefully that covers the question there. And with that being said, I'm going to jump right into the rest of the questions because we got a lot of people joining in today and a lot of questions coming through. Vadim is asking, which foods contain the most amount of copper? Off the top of my head, I don't know. But I have put together a vitamin and mineral guide that covers all the major vitamins and minerals, and it covers some of the best food sources for those. And I have a copy of that. If you want, Vadim, I can actually email it to you. So send me an email or Facebook message me and say, hi, I'm Vadim from the video chat, and I was asking about foods that have high amounts of copper in it. Can you send me your vitamin and mineral guide? Blah, 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 something like that. And I'll actually forward you a copy of it. It's a PDF report that I put together where I listed out all the different vitamins and minerals and electrolytes and I talk about the best natural food sources for each one of them. So I talk about like the ideal amounts that you need as an athlete, not just the RDA, because I should mention this. The recommended daily allowance, the RDA of vitamins and minerals, that's not what's needed for optimal performance. That's what's needed for survival. That's to prevent you from dying of a vitamin deficiency. It's not to maximize athletic performance and strength and health and vitality. And the whole RDA was basically developed back in the war times. And when I say war times, I'm talking like back in the old wars, like in the world wars, right? World War I, World War II, when soldiers were dying of malnutrition. This was developed by the government as a way to ensure that people were getting enough nourishment to prevent themselves from dying of malnutrition. So as long as you met these minimum check marks, you weren't going to die and starve to death from malnutrition. That's where the RDA comes from. So it's enough to keep you alive. It doesn't mean it's optimal. Now, in some cases, it may be close. But what I did is I put together a whole vitamin and mineral guide for athletes, and it covers the optimal levels. And I did a lot of research on this. This was done several years back, where I researched all the major vitamins and minerals, the best natural food sources for them, and I put it together into a PDF file. So again, I can't remember it off the top of my head because it was done, 5 or 10 years ago. I put that together. But if you want a copy of it, just send me an email and I'll send it to you. Eagle Eye John's joining in. It says, I haven't trained in 2 weeks, only little bits. That would be fine. What do you think of a 4-day split? I haven't trained in 2 weeks, only little bits. Would that be fine? Well, it is what it is. I mean, I know it's not optimal. I mean, obviously, if you take time off training, it's not optimal, but start again, right? Like just jump back into where you were. I mean, like just try and pick up the pieces. As far as a 4-day split, that really depends on you, your fitness level, your schedule, and everything else. I mean, if you can handle a 4-day split and you enjoy it and it works well, by all means do it. But you don't need to do a 4-day split. Like you can make progress with a 3-day workout. And in my case, I usually do 3 weight training workouts per week. That's what works the best for me, and that's what I enjoy. But I know other people who like 4-day split, 5-day split, 6-day split. It really depends on you, your schedule, your goals, and it's a lot to unpack, right? I mean, we need to like really do a deep dive into like your goals, your body type, what it is you're training for, your fitness level, your experience, all this kind of stuff. It's kind of hard to just put together a cookie cutter routine and say, hey, everybody should do a 4-day split, right? Like, if you're really advanced and you're an athlete training for a specific sport, 4 days probably isn't enough. If you're brand new, 4 days is probably too much. If you're somewhere in the middle, 4 days might be just about right? It's almost like the Goldilocks rule, right? You don't want too much, you don't want too little, you just right. So that's going to depend on the individual. But I know John, I mean, he's been working out for a while. I think just based on what I know from you, because you're a regular on the chat and stuff, I'm pretty sure you can handle a 4-day split. But most important thing, listen to your body, monitor your progress, and see how things are working, right? I mean, if you feel good, you're making progress, then keep doing a 4-day split. If you start to feel a bit burnt out and like it's too much, and you get those overtraining symptoms, scale it back. Maybe try 3 days. All right, moving on. What else we got there? We have GS93. What would be the best bodybuilding split for a construction worker to do framing and I do framing and remodeling? Again, that's kind of similar to the answer I gave John. Just because you're a construction worker and doing framing and remodeling, like, what's your goals? Like, are you trying to gain size? You're trying to lose fat? Like, where are you in terms of your fitness level? How long have you been working out? How long have you been doing construction? How old are you? Like, there's a lot of variables that come into play. And if you really want some help with like planning out a proper program, send me an email and we can really do a deep dive and brainstorm an action plan that's right for you. But I'm just going to share some general rules of thumb, if you will, for someone in your situation. When you're doing physical labor work, you've got to factor that into the whole recovery process. It's not like you've got 100% recovery to dedicate to construction and you've got 100% recovery to dedicate to weight training. You've got 100% total. So you got to divvy that up accordingly. So like if you feel beat down and exhausted after a day of work because you're doing physical work, then you're not going to be able to push yourself as hard in the gym. And you're going to have to kind of compromise and see what areas need the most work. Like maybe in your line of work, certain muscle groups are getting worked really heavily. Like maybe there's a lot of work for your hands and your forearms and your and maybe your back and certain areas like that. So the areas that you feel are getting a lot of work from your job, you probably don't want to focus so much on that in the gym and instead focusing on some of the other areas that are getting neglected. Maybe more work for the legs or more work for the core, more work for some mobility issues and things like that, and trying to balance things out. Kind of like what I mentioned earlier in my situation where I'm combining cycling and weight training. Like I'm trying to balance out the weak links, right? Because when you're cycling, obviously there's certain muscle groups, i.e. the legs, that are getting a lot of work. And then there's other muscle groups, i.e. the upper body, is getting hardly any work. So you want to balance that out. Same thing in your situation. You want to look at what you're getting a lot of work in with your job and then kind of balance that out with your workouts. And if you do have any mobility issues or aches and pains, you want to address those before they become problematic. But bottom line, you have to factor in everything, right? Again, recovery is going to be the big thing. So like maybe you won't need to do a lot of extra cardiovascular work, because especially if your goal is just to gain mass and not lose body fat, because I know from experience, people who are very physically active, you're burning a lot of calories throughout the day. And even though it's not like in your target heart rate zone or whatever, from a calories in, calories out and an energy expenditure point of view, you're burning a heck of a lot more calories throughout the day versus someone who's sitting at a desk tapping at a keyboard all day. So you're burning way more calories, and you don't need to try and go out there and create an even bigger calorie expenditure by walking on the treadmill and bumping up your calorie expenditure that way. So you probably want to focus more on, what you need to do in your situation to maximize your specific weaknesses. So again, it's kind of like, I know it's kind of a broad general answer, but it's a broad general question because it really depends on you and your specific situation. So GS, if you would like some specific help with it, feel free to send me a message, whether you friend me up on Facebook and we chat through Messenger, or send me an email at leehayward.com and we can chat that way and see if we can map out an action plan for you. All right, we have Walker is the last name. Y Walker. I can't pronounce your first name, but Y Walker says, I have wide hips. What can you change? There's two questions. It was broken up into two parts there. It says, I have wide hips. Can you change your body to meso? All right. First off, there's three general categories of body types. The ectomorph is kind of like the tall, skinny, lean person. The endomorph is the stocky, heavy, fat person, and then the mesomorph is like in the middle, the athletic, muscular build person. Now, there's a lot of variations and combinations within that, but that's kind of like boxing everybody into three categories. But you will get ranges. Like you might have somebody who's like a kind of a skinny fat, and then you might have someone who's heavy set, but then has some good muscle mass. Some people might be heavy set in certain areas, and then skinny and lean in other areas. Like there's all kinds of different combinations here of body types. But generally, the tall, skinny, lean, muscular, stocky, heavy set, right? That's the ecto, meso, endo. Now you can change your body type characteristics through training and nutrition. So like if you're really overweight and then you lean down and you build muscle and you improve your body composition, you will take on the characteristics of a mesomorph. If you're really skinny and lean and you build more muscle on your frame through years of training, you will take on the characteristics, so I'm trying to say, of a mesomorph. And most people want more of those mesomorphic traits, but not always. I mean, certain sports and athletes want to be the lean ectomorph. Like if you think of like top level endurance athletes, top level marathon runners, top level cyclists, whatever, they want to be ectomorphs. That's where they want to be. They want to be that lean, sleek, skinny type of physique. They want to be that instead of the big, stocky, muscular physique. So it depends on you and your goals and your body type and what it is you're trying to achieve. I'm not saying one's right or wrong, good or bad. And on the other side of the spectrum, some people want to be endomorphs, right? If you want to be the Japanese sumo champion of the world, you want to be endomorph, right? You want to have some meat on your bones so that you can throw your weight around and toss people out of the ring. right? So depending on your goals, each one of these body types could be advantageous, right? If you want to be Mr. Olympia, you want to be a mesomorph. If you want to be sumo champ, you want to be endomorph. If you want to be Tour de France, victorious, you want to be ectomorph. So it's not one is right or wrong or good or bad. It depends on what it is you're trying to achieve and what your natural genetic tendencies are. But you can, to a certain degree, change some of those characteristics. Now, we all have our genetic tendencies, and you're never going to escape that, right? Like someone who's naturally tall and lean is never going to be a 500-pound sumo wrestler, and someone who's naturally big and stocky is never going to be a skinny world record marathon runner. So I mean, we all have our genetic limitations, if you will, but through training and nutrition, you can modify, work within your own body type and go to make some changes towards improving your body composition depending on what it is you're trying to achieve. Yeah. Like in my case, naturally, I'm more of the skinny fat, because like before I started training, like I had like really skinny in the arms and shoulders, but I was kind of heavy set in the legs and heavy set in belly fat, right? It was kind of a weird shape, right? It wasn't an ideal genetic specimen by any stretch of the imagination. When I look at my, young childhood pictures, skinny arms, skinny shoulders, kind of thick throughout the torso, thick throughout the legs, and thick throughout the midsection, like belly fat. And I really had to work on improving my body composition, so keeping the body fat under control and building up muscle in the right places, and then just trying to improve my physique to take on more of a mesomorphic characteristic shape. And, through my bodybuilding years, I've certainly done a good job of that. Now, I mean, it's a vast improvement of where I was, not elite level by any stretch of the imagination, but it's certainly a big improvement. And that's what you need to focus on, is just personal progress and improvement, right? Okay, what else we got there? Another question. This one's another one from Vadim saying, I got one more question for you. Canadian protein powder that you had in one of your videos, Blue Star Iso Smooth. I was wondering, do you know where I can get the Vanilla Dream? I'm not sure. That was a while back that I was using the Blue Star products. We're talking like years. This is probably 10 plus years ago. Where I get my protein powder from now is from Canadian Protein. It's actually a company called CanadianProtein.com, and that's where I order it. And they've got a vanilla whey protein, and it's one of the better vanilla whey proteins, and that's the one I use. I buy that one up. And a second, I might even have some of it here. Just give me a second there. I'll see if I got one. I did anyway. I can't remember. No, never mind. I think I used it. I had I used to buy in big boxes, and I used to get a big box with 3 6-pound bags in each box. But I think I just the last one is out in the kitchen somewhere. But I thought I had some extras there stocked up in my office there, but I don't. But anyway, that's where I go and get my protein from now. So if you want a good quality vanilla, that's a reasonable price. I mean, it's not the cheapest. I'll be honest, it's not the cheapest, but it mixes well, tastes good, and I really enjoy it. It's from Canadian Protein, and they've got a whole bunch of different protein powders. Like if you want egg protein and plant-based protein, or if you want different types, grass-fed whey protein, that kind of stuff, isolates, concentrates, blends. They've got a whole mix, but I get their vanilla whey protein blend. That's the one that I've been using, and I really like it. And I've been using that for the past few years now as my primary protein of choice. Sometimes I also go get my protein powder at Costco, but lately, as in like within the last year or so, I found like our local Costco hasn't had some of the flavors that I like, and it's very limited in their selection. Now, granted, the protein powder that Costco does carry, for the bang for your buck, you're not going to get a better value, but they're quite limited in their selection. And of course, the way Costco is, they might have a certain brand and a certain flavor, and then next month, different brand, different flavor. Like it's not always reliable. And the one that I was getting from there for a while, they discontinued it, and they got in another brand, and I didn't really like it. So Lately, I've been getting it from CanadianProtein.com. Moving on. We have Al from California. Welcome, Al. Guess you're new to the video chat. It's nice to have you joining in. What else we got there? AJ is joining in. Says, I was working out during Ramadan, but eased off the intensity before Ramadan. I had 160 kilogram deadlift, 130 kilogram squat, 107 kilogram bench press, but I've lost a lot of strength. What do you suggest I do? Start again. It's inevitable. Like, anytime you have a disruption in your eating and your training and your lifestyle, you're going to lose some ground. Like with Ramadan especially, I mean, you're going the majority of the day without food and fluid, so you're not in an optimal state for building muscle and training with intensity. Like, nourishment is huge. If you don't feed the body, it's not going to be able to perform as well. But the good news is there's muscle memory. You've probably heard of this before. So the strength that you had before Ramadan, I'm willing to bet, give yourself a month or 6 weeks or so of training after, and you should be pretty much back to those same numbers again. Now, yes, you're going to be starting off from a lower starting point than you were before, right? So it's going to be a little dip, but then you'll build back up. And then before you know it, you'll actually be surpassing those lifts. So it's almost like taking one step back so that you can take 2 steps forward. Look at it that way. But I've been online coaching people since 97. That's when I started, which was basically when the internet as we know it started. Like, the internet as we know it today only became legal in 1996. Before then, it was basically like a government network. That's all it was. But it became legal for regular Joes and businesses and everybody to use the internet back in 1996. I started my website in 97. So I'm one of the pioneers to the whole online fitness scene. And I shared this before, but like back when I started, I remember my first time going on the internet in 1997. I typed in bodybuilding and nothing came up. The internet was empty, right? All that came up was there were some terms and definitions saying like bodybuilding is lifting weights and building your muscles and some jibber jabber like that. But there was no bodybuilding.com. There was no YouTube. There was no social media. There was no workout programs or blogs. Like, you typed in bodybuilding into the search engines and this was before the days of Google. The search engine at the time was like Yahoo, and then a bunch of other ones like Excite and AltaVista and Metacrawler and Webcrawler, and like back in the search engine glory days when there was a gazillion search engines. And you type in bodybuilding and like literally there was nothing there. So when I launched my Total Fitness Bodybuilding website back in 1997, which I did as a school project, like, anybody who worked out and had an internet connection and typed in anything related to fitness or exercise, they were finding me online because like I was one of the few sites that was there. Like, there was nothing else out there. So I went from like nobody, just like a snotty nosed teenager in my bedroom at, at 19 years old, starting my website with nothing but a passion for exercise and fitness. And the next thing I know, I was just blowing up and having people from all over the world reaching out to me. And it's really just snowballed from there. Right. But anyway, so back in 1997 is when I started this. And even back then, I was getting people asking me, like, how do they deal with Ramadan? And I've got to be honest, I've never dealt with it before. All right. I've never went through that type of period of fasting before. It's just something that I don't do. And I don't have any practical real world experience other than what I've heard from other people who've gone through it. And anytime you fast for a prolonged period of time, and especially fasting without drinking, true dry fast for a prolonged period of time, you're going to lose muscle. You're going to lose strength. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. But you can regain it. Once you resume proper nutrition, proper training, and everything else, you will regain it. It's easier to regain lost muscle the second time around than it is to gain it the first time. All right. What else we got there? Let me see. Bez is we. Progress pictures help, but I'd say don't overdo it because they might demotivate. Sometimes it's the process is slow. Hope this helps someone. That's there's some wisdom there for sure. Progress pictures do help. And I recommend, if you're on a fat loss or a muscle building or body recomposition journey, take your progress pictures. But you got to you got to see the bigger picture. And I was actually having a conversation with one of my coaching students today, Craig, we actually did a video together that I'm going to be sharing very soon. He's made an amazing transformation going through the whole Muscle After 40 blueprint. But one of the things that we really emphasized is, like, don't be in a rush. This is a marathon. This isn't a sprint. This takes time. And if you can wrap your head around that, you'd be amazed at how much you can progress. Because when it comes to fitness, a lot of people overestimate how much they can achieve in the short term. Like, they think, oh, I'm going to go on some 30-day shred. I'm going to go on a 6-week cut. I'm going to work out for a month and look out. I'm going to be huge, jacked and ripped and brrr. It ain't going to happen. Like, I don't care how hard you work out. I don't care how much you starve yourself or how much torture you push yourself through for the next month. You're not going to go from 0 to hero in a month or 6 weeks or 90 days or any short-term phase like that. It ain't going to happen. But most people underestimate how much they can progress over the next 5 years. So, like, think bigger. Instead of getting hung up and like, oh, I want to be jacked next month, think, like, where do you want to be this time next year? Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years? Like, when you zoom out and look at the bigger picture, that's when it becomes a life-changing transformation. I mean, if you take someone who's eating whatever the hell they want, they're not exercising, they're just, living the typical American lifestyle, right? Fast food and Netflix and whatever, right? Like, just don't give a shit about their health and fitness, right? They just live their day and don't care. And they do that for 10 years, right? They're going to be overweight, right? They're going to probably be borderline obese, like this, just go out in public and look around. Like, the average person you see in public, like, that's average. That's normal these days. Overweight is average. So if you want to be an average person, you're overweight and out of shape, because that's average these days. Versus you take someone who's exercising regularly, eating a healthy diet, living a lifestyle, purposely taking action to take care of themselves and make progress. And they do that for 10 years. Like, think of someone who neglects their health for 10 years versus someone who proactively takes action for 10 years. Then it's like this night and day transformation, and people are looking at the person who has proactively taken action for the last 10 years and they're like, what the hell are you doing? Right? What drugs are you taking? What ketogenic diet are you following? What supplements are you taking? Like, what are you doing? Oh my God. And it's not that they're doing anything crazy. It's that they're good enough consistently, right? And that just let the results compound. Because a lot of people, they always want the quick fix, right? They want to diet today and be ripped tomorrow, right? And it doesn't happen that way, right? It takes time. But, it's once you let the time happen, I mean, it will progress. So that's actually pretty cool that you mentioned that. A lot of people get too impatient. And I remember I was chatting with somebody over on the Dad Bod Transformation group, and he was all frustrated because he tried that diet and exercise stuff and it didn't work, and he quit it because, I put in the effort and I suffered it out and it didn't work. And then when I started chatting to him, he dieted for 1 week. He says, I dieted for a full week and I didn't lose any weight, so I quit. I'm like, a week? Like, give me a break. I mean, like, what did you expect to achieve in a week? Imagine if it worked the other way around. Like, imagine we gained weight as fast when we're not dieting as we expect to lose it when we are dieting. Like, imagine you fell off the bandwagon for a week and you put on 50 pounds, right? Like, oh shit, then we'd be really in trouble. Like, it's good that there's some lag time between the effort you put in and the actual results in the real world, right? There's a lag time. Your body has to adapt to the change. It's not like you exercise today and you're ripped tomorrow, or you do a set of biceps today and you got bigger arms tomorrow. Like, no, there's some lag time, right? It takes time for your body to adapt and adjust and respond. And the same thing with diet and exercise and fat loss or anything. It takes time for your body to adapt and adjust and respond. It's not instantaneous. And the same thing, like, if you cheat on your diet, it's not like, oh, you go out and have a meal of McDonald's today and you're obese tomorrow, right? Which is darn good, because if it was, I mean, we'd have some really unhealthy people in the world. Or it's not like I go out and I get drunk on a Friday night, I'm going to have liver disease on a Saturday morning. Like, it doesn't happen that quick. And it's good that it doesn't happen that quick, that there's, you got to compound the negative habits for the negative side effects to happen. And you got to compound the good habits for the good side effects to happen. So, that works for you in your favor. So respect the process and, monitor it accordingly, but think bigger, not getting hung up in the short term. A lot of people get tangled up in the weeds, right? You know, but anyway, good point. And he says, I hope you pronounce my name well. I hope I did too, right? What else we got there? Neil Marvin. Oh, wait, no, I missed one. He says, can we get a glimpse of the legendary bicep? I don't know if they're that legendary these days, but there we are. The legendary biceps. There they are. The legendary. They're not that big these days, but there they are. Can we get a glimpse of the legendary biceps? Thanks. You're welcome. Neil Marvin. Lee, what are your thoughts on uneven shoulders when executing chest dips? I noticed this week when I went back to doing weighted dips and filmed it to check my form. This is pretty common for a lot of people. Like your body is not always in perfect symmetry and balance. So sometimes when you're doing exercises, you may be a little crooked or whatever. And it's good that you're aware of it because now you can consciously take some action to correct it. But that's pretty common. So what are my thoughts on that? Well, first of all, I'd really like to see how bad it is, because sometimes we're our own worst critic and we may be blowing things out of proportion, or there may be some significant issues there that need to be addressed and corrected. One thing I will address, I'm not a huge fan of adding weight to dips. Now, I know some people do it and some people love it and everything else, and more power to them. But I find that that's an exercise where when you go heavier with it, there's a greater risk of injury, because with a dip, it's a very delicate movement because it's easy to overstretch, that shoulder area right there. I know it's not the greatest you're showing on the camera. Maybe it's better on that side. But when you're doing a dip, there's a lot of stress in that shoulder area when you're bending your arm back. And I've seen a lot of guys mess up their shoulders and even, pull some muscles throughout their pecs and stuff when doing weighted dips. So you want to be careful, and you want to I prefer to just do body weight and higher repetitions, more time under tension. And if you're really strong with it, save it as a finisher for after your workout. So do bench presses and other exercises to work your chest, and those exercises which have a natural range of motion limiter. Like when you're doing the bench press, you can't overstretch yourself because the barbell's hitting your chest, right? You can't go too deep with it. So exercises like that to be the meat and potatoes of your workout. And then if you want to do the dips and you feel like you're really strong to the point where you have to add weight to them, like your body weight alone is not heavy, then save it for a finisher and be a great way to pump up the chest at the end, and less risk of injury that way. And also when you're doing the dips, when you're fully warmed up and pumped up at the end, it might also help to, reduce the risk of injury because everything's warmed up and limbered. But that's my feedback on it. I used to do weighted dips in the day, and yes, I did get away with it when I was younger, but you're walking a tightrope, right? The risk to reward, as far as the risk of injury, is not always in your favor. So I'm not a big fan of weighted dips, right? So now, for those of you who are fans of weighted dips and you've been doing it and it's working for you, well, hey, just take what I said with a grain of salt and keep on doing what you're doing. But that's my feedback on it. Another thing that I would recommend when it comes to just this whole idea and any imbalances in general, probably incorporate more single limb work into your workouts, to try and balance out the left and right sides. Because it's very common for people to have imbalances where one side is stronger than the other, and you're unconsciously handling more of the workload with your stronger, more dominant side. So most people, they're right-handed, they tend to be stronger with their right side. And subconsciously, you could be lifting more weight with your right side. So in the case of a dip, it might not be a 50-50 split between the left and right. It might be 60-40 or 55-45 or something like that. It could be the stronger side's handling a bit more of the workload. And then because there's more torque on that stronger side, it's causing your body to twist in a certain position and create that unevenness. Whereas if you're doing exercises like dumbbells or single limb, or machines with independent moving handles, like the hammer strength machines and stuff like that, you literally force both sides to handle an equal workload. So the stronger side can't overcompensate for the weaker side. So incorporating more of those into your workouts might help as well. All right. But this is something like you ideally, if you have like an experienced coach or someone at your gym who can really critique your form in person, this would be ideal. Someone who can work with you one-on-one to really do a deep dive analysis into this, because it's hard for me to do a deep dive analysis from a comment because I don't even know what your form looks like. But if you have someone, an experienced lifter or trainer at your gym, just ask them, hey, do you mind helping me out with my dips, right? Check my form, critique it, and give me some pointers. And if they're a seasoned trainer with years of experience under their belt and know what they're doing, then hopefully they'll be able to point you in the right direction. Craig is joining us. He says, Lee, how is a good way to make plain Greek yogurt taste good instead of the bitter regular flavor? I actually like the taste of yogurt. I use it in a lot of ways, like even as a sour cream alternative. Like, for example, if I'm having a baked potato, instead of putting sour cream on my baked potato, I usually use Greek yogurt. And if I'm having salad dressing, I usually use a mix of plain Greek yogurt and salad dressing, like a 50-50 mix. And that bitter flavor, which you may not like, I actually do enjoy it. But with that being said, if you don't enjoy it and you want more of a sweeter or fruity flavor or something like that, then you can make your yogurt taste the way you want by adding stuff to it. And I'll give you some prime examples. If you like fruit flavored yogurt, maybe you like strawberry or you like strawberry and banana, guess what you can do? You can get some strawberries, chop, 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 get some banana, chop, 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 dump it in with your yogurt, stir it up. Now you got a strawberry banana yogurt, and that'll have a fruit flavored yogurt. And this is much better than buying the sugary fruit flavored yogurts at the store, because most of those are, again, loaded with sugar and artificial flavors and additives and everything else. Whereas if you chop up your own fruit, mix it in, that'll give it that nice fruit flavor that you want. If you like vanilla flavor, then take some vanilla protein powder, stir it in with your yogurt, right? Then you have like a vanilla pudding flavored yogurt. And this is one that a lot of my coaching students do. Like, this is one that I recommend as a late night snack for a lot of people. Get some fat-free plain Greek yogurt, throw in a scoop of protein powder and stir it up, and it takes on the taste of the protein powder. So if you put chocolate in, there's going to have a chocolate flavor. If you put vanilla in, there's going to have vanilla flavor. And it's almost like a pudding that mixes up like that pudding texture. And most protein powders, especially if you get a good one, has a really nice taste, and the yogurt gives it a nice creamy texture. So it makes like a nice creamy pudding, and it's almost like a dessert. So, I mean, that's some options that you can look into if you want to change the flavor of your yogurt. How much do you charge for a personal coaching session? I don't do one-on-one coaching sessions in the gym anymore, but when I did, last going off, it was $100 a session when I used to do one-on-one coaching in the gym. These days, I do online coaching and consultations, and it varies depending on what it is you need, right? Like, we've got programs from base level programs and literally some free programs that I can set you up with. Because I mean, like, heck, on the YouTube channel, there's a ton of free content and I can point you in the right direction, to in-depth one-on-one coaching programs that range all the way up to several $1,000s. So everything from free to quite expensive in some cases. But if you would like some help and just to discuss, your options and what would be a realistic action plan for you, feel free to reach out to me, and you can send me an email. And my email address is in the description below. It's leeh@leehayward.com. I also have a link in there where you can book in for a free strategy session call with me, and we can sit down and basically just jump on a Zoom call, discuss your situation, what it is you're trying to achieve, and brainstorm an action plan for you. And I'll know from our conversation if you'd be a good fit to come on board with our VIP coaching program or not. And I won't BS you. Like, the way it is when it comes to the whole coaching program, if I feel I can help you and you're a good fit, then I'll let you know. If not, then I'll try and point you in the right direction. And I turn people away all the time. I really do, because I'm not interested in wasting my time and just trying to take on another coaching student for another coaching student. Like, that really doesn't interest me. I'm only looking for people that I can turn into before and after success stories. People who are going to get real world results. That's what interests me. And if I feel I can help you and I feel you're a good fit for what I have to offer and everything else, and I think, we can actually make this work, I'll let you know. If not, then I'll point you in the right direction to someone who can help you with whatever it is that you're trying to deal with, whether that's, if there's another coach out there I feel who's better suited to you and your situation, then I'll point you in the right direction. I have no problem doing that. And I've done it many times. But again, if you want some help, feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. And those initial strategy session calls, you can book in for those for free. And I have a link to them in the description below, as well as on my website. You can go to leehayward.com. And in the top menu bar there's a link there called coaching, where you can book in for a free strategy session call with me. And just literally fill out a little application form and book in for a time in my calendar. And we can have a chat. What are your thoughts on the creatine price hike? I didn't even know there was a creatine price hike, so it didn't cross my mind. I have no thoughts on it, but it doesn't surprise me. I mean, with the way the world is going and the price of fuel and everything else, everything's going to take a price hike. So the prices have been going up since the invention of money, right? And it's never going to stop, right? It's just going to keep going up and up and up and up and up, right? Live with it. That's it. Should I incorporate weight training into my 5-mile walks to lose weight? Yes, I think you should. I think weight training is a great complementary exercise to incorporate into a fat loss / weight loss routine. The benefit of weight training is it's going to help to build lean muscle, whereas cardio alone is not going to build muscle. And the more muscle you have, the faster your metabolism is going to be, and the easier it's going to be to burn calories 24/7. Like during the actual weight training workout itself, you don't really burn a whole lot of calories. You will burn more doing a 5-mile walk than you will an hour in the gym, right? You will, guaranteed. But the muscle you build will make you stronger. It'll help to improve your body composition, and you will see more physical changes in terms of body composition and like filling out your frame and getting that tight, toned, athletic look through a combination of weight training and cardio than just cardio alone. So I definitely think if your goal is to have a lean, muscular physique, weight training definitely has to be part of it. Even if you, and I'll use that term lightly because some people get scared when I say muscular, right? They think, well, I don't want to be a Mr. Olympia or anything like that. I don't want to look like a freak. You're not going to look like a freak by adding weight training. Like it's not like you're going to lift weights today and wake up tomorrow like, oh my God, where did all these muscles come from? I'm too big. Like it doesn't happen that quick. I mean, most people wish it did, but it ain't going to happen. It ain't going to sneak up on you. Right. But I've seen it over and over again. When people add weight training to their program, they look and feel so much better. And again, if you want some help with it, feel free to reach out and we can discuss an action plan for you. Another question here. Raf is asking, is Optimum Nutrition a good brand for protein and creatine? Yes, Optimum Nutrition has been around for years. I mean, since I started working out back in I don't know how long they've been around, but I know back in the 90s, when I started to learn about supplements, Optimum Nutrition was kind of like leading the pack back then as well. So, I mean, they're still around. They're still a good brand. I use them from time to time. I mean, I've certainly used their products, and they are one of the reputable companies. Absolutely. You can certainly use them with confidence. Another question. I build more muscle during Ramadan. I don't know why people cry about that. All right. If you're building more muscle when you're fasting and not drinking, you're the exception and not the rule. But kudos to you. I mean, hey, if you build more muscle by not eating, then don't eat. Right? If that works for you, then by all means go for it. That's the exception and not the rule. And that's actually a good point. We can kind of unpack that a little bit. Just because somebody's getting results doing something doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody. And sometimes people get results in spite of something, not because of something. Like maybe during Ramadan, you're more consistent with other aspects. Maybe you're more consistent with your workouts, or maybe there's less stress in your life, or maybe you're getting better quality of sleep, or there could be other aspects that are contributing to building more muscle, and not necessarily building more muscle because you're not eating and drinking all day, right? Like, there could be other reasons going on. And sometimes we see someone who's oh, so and so does XYZ and they're huge and jacked, and they think, well, maybe it's because of the XYZ that they're huge and jacked. Like, I'll give you a prime example. Like, let's just say, an athlete who goes out and binge drinks on Friday night, but the guy is lean and ripped and jacked. Well, he's not lean, ripped, and jacked because he binge drinks on Friday night. He's lean, ripped, and jacked in spite of the fact that he binge drinks on Friday night. Like, just because somebody does something doesn't always mean that that is actually contributing to their progress. Sometimes they make progress in spite of it, not because of it. So, you got to look at the bigger picture when it comes to a lot of this stuff and kind of unpack it in more detail. But anyway, again, getting back to your statement, if you're building more muscle, good for you. That's awesome. All right, I'm going to get ready and clue it up soon because I've been doing this for over an hour now, but I know there's a few more questions, and I want to see if I can just scroll through them pretty quick. There's not that many more. I'll see if I can knock them out before we clue it up. I will have some side effects. Will I have some side effects if I use a low recommended dose of Ostarine? What do you think about SARMs? I don't really have any personal feedback when it comes to SARMs. I mean, like, I've never used them myself, and I really can't give you any real world feedback about it, right? So the only thing I will say about it, it's an underground thing. Like, there's no regulation when it comes to SARMs, right? So, like, it's literally the wild, wild west. And even if you go to any SARMs website out there, they'll say these are not meant for human consumption. These are research chemicals. So, I mean, like, that kind of puts in category like what it is. Like, you don't know if you're getting what's in the bottle is what's on the label. Like, you really don't know. There's no regulation to this. So I'd be very iffy when it comes to stuff like this. Like, if anybody truly needs hormone replacement therapy or something along those lines, I would strongly encourage you to go through a doctor and do it properly, like, or a hormone replacement clinic or something along those lines. And I actually made a video talking about this a while back. You just scroll through my recent uploads. It was within the last 6 months or so, I made that video talking about hormone replacement therapy. And actually, one of my coaching students who was struggling, like, eating right, exercising, doing all the right things, but still kind of like not maximizing his progress. And then when he went and got his blood work done and checked with the hormone replacement therapy clinic and all that, he found that even though he was in his mid 40s, he had the testosterone level of an 80-year-old man. And then once he started getting on hormone replacement therapy, I mean, he started making gains, started feeling better, sex drive improved. Like, there was a lot of positives once he got himself into the right range, but he was doing so under medical supervision and not just crap shooting it with underground PEDs that he bought off the internet. So that's my feedback. I mean, I'm not saying do it or don't do it or whatever. I'm just saying I don't have any personal experience with it, and I would much rather see someone do it the right way under doctor supervision. What else we got there? I read Google says higher reps, chest responds better to 12 to 20 reps. All right. Well, if Google says your chest responds to 12 to 20 reps, then it must. Look, any repetition range that you train in a progressive overload fashion is going to work. And that's an individual thing. Some people respond better to higher reps. Some people respond better to lower reps. And it depends on what it is you're training for. If you're training to compete in a powerlifting meet, you're going to need to do some low rep work in there, right? Build that explosive max effort strength. If you're training for more muscular endurance and conditioning, then you want to do some higher rep work. If your goal is just hypertrophy, then it's kind of like a combination of both and somewhere in the middle. But that's, that's a variable thing. That's like, anyway, that's an individual thing. What else we got there? Rod says beer, working out, and football. Okay. Good for you. I don't know if that means you're having a beer while you're working out and watching football. I don't know. Anyways, it's just a statement. JE says, I'm getting elbow pain in one arm when doing overhead trap bar press. I never used to before, but it's becoming more prevalent. Any tips? Well, one, probably stop doing the trap bar press and see if you can do another shoulder press variation that doesn't cause elbow pain and aggravation. But it could be some form of tendonitis. Usually, if you're getting elbow pain, it's some sort of inflammation in the tendons, joints, ligaments, and you want to avoid aggravating that. So maybe you can do another exercise variation and that works the muscles in a different plane of motion and doesn't place that same stress. And this it's weird sometimes. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, sometimes you might be doing tricep push downs with a flat bar and that kills your elbows, but then you switch to a rope attachment and you do the same exercise, but just you switch the grip, and now all of a sudden you can do the movement with little or no pain. Same with bicep curls. I've seen guys like do a regular dumbbell bicep curl with the palms up, and tendonitis and shooting pain throughout their elbows and forearms. But they switch to a hammer curl grip with the thumbs up. Now all of a sudden they can curl without any pain. So you may be able to just switch the variation around and avoid aggravating that particular pain in your elbow, right? So that's one thing. You want to avoid aggravating the pain. So try and do some other forms of exercises to avoid aggravating it. And then you want to look into some specific rehab exercises to strengthen whatever it is. And again, I'm just based on your comment, I'm assuming it's some sort of elbow tendonitis. But if you want to get a proper diagnosis, then it'd be helpful to go see a physiotherapist, preferably someone who's working with athletes and can really do a deep dive and break it down and see exactly what it is that you've got done. But the most important thing is avoid aggravating it any further. So if a particular exercise hurts, doesn't feel right, don't do that exercise. Try to find another alternative to work around it. And if you can't find another alternative to work around it, then for the short term, you may have to just scrap that exercise. Like if you can't find an overhead press variation that doesn't allow you to train without causing pain or discomfort, then for the short term, you may have to drop the overhead presses from your routine and focus on other isolation moves to work the shoulders instead. But you need to let that injury rest and recover and avoid aggravating it further. What else we got there? What do you think about instant oats? Is it good for gaining weight? I love instant oatmeal. I have it as a regular part of my diet. I mean, it's just one of my staples for breakfast. As far as gaining weight, that's going to depend on your overall caloric intake. You could have oatmeal as a part of a fat loss program. Just make sure you keep yourself in a calorie deficit, or it could be part of a weight gain program if you're in a calorie surplus. So the food itself is fine. It's a great source of complex carbohydrates. It's high in fiber. It's very nutrient dense. I mean, it's a great food, very filling and satiating. As far as whether it's going to help you gain, lose, or maintain, that just depends on the overall calorie intake in general. Jose is joining us. Says, hello, Lee. I got late to the chat. I was trying to improve my VO2 max. Question, what would be the optimal angle for an incline bench press? That's, again, it's a personal preference thing. I mean, something you're going to want to experiment and try and see what works best for you. But generally, you don't want to go too high. Like if you go 45 degrees or steeper, like in that higher range, it's starting to become more of a shoulder press and less of an incline bench press. So if your main goal is to focus on the upper chest, you want to keep it 45 degrees would be the max, and even less than that. So somewhere in that range. And if you have the adjustable benches, then you can play around with it, anywhere from just a very slight incline to 45 and play in that range right there. Once you start going from 45 upwards, then you start to take some of the stress off the upper chest and place more of it on the shoulders. So I would say for most people, this is cookie cutter generalization recommendations here. A 45 degree angle would be the max. And most incline bench presses you see at the gym, like with, the proper incline bench press machine with the uprights and that, they're usually fixed at a 45 degree angle. That would be what I'd consider your max. But if you have access to the adjustable benches where you can adjust the back, I would actually go a little lower than that. And I find a little tiny bit lower than 45 degrees, a notch or two lower on the bench. That's where you're going to get most chest activation without overworking the shoulders. So, but again, it's something you're going to really have to experiment and just see what feels the best for you. Right? Because again, everybody's body position is different, and also how you set it up. Like, if you arch your upper back, really plant your traps into the bench, arch your upper back, expand your chest, rotate your shoulder blades behind you. Like you can expand your chest and help to activate the upper chest even more when you're doing the bench press. That applies for any type of bench press, but specifically in this case, the incline bench. Vincent is joining us. He says, I got skinny high calves. How can I add mass? The same as if you have any calves, right? Calf raises. The most important thing, I'll give you the quick and dirty for calf raises. And first off, I've got videos on calf raises. Just do search for Lee Hayward calf raise. And there's a whole bunch of calf raise video tutorials that I've got on YouTube. But I'll give you the quick and dirty lowdown here. There's two main exercises you want to do for your calves. You want to do a standing calf raise with your legs straight, and you want to do a seated calf raise with your legs bent. That's going to work, all the major areas of the calves. When your legs are bent, you're going to be targeting more of the soleus. When your legs are straight, you're going to be targeting more of the gastrocnemius, the two muscles within the calves. So you want to do a straight leg calf raise and a bent leg calf raise, right, to get both aspects. The most important thing with the calves is full range of motion. A lot of people, you see this all the time. Guys will go in the gym and they'll put the whole weight stack on the calf raise machine, and they'll get in there and they do these little tiny bouncy reps, in the mid range, right? They got way too much weight, and their heels are barely sinking down, and they're hardly coming up on their toes. Like, they're not even coming up all the way on their tippy toes, and they're not sinking all the way down to get a full stretch. They're just in the mid range, doing these little tiny bouncy reps. Half the time their knees are bent, so they're half squatting it, half bouncing. They're with the whole weight stack, and they think they're cool because they're lifting a lot of weight. Like, cut the weight down. I take really, really light weight. Heck, start with body weight. Like, literally, start with your body weight and master the form first before you even add resistance. Get a full stretch. Let your heels sink all the way down as far as you can and hold that for a second. Get a full stretch in the calves. And then come all the way up onto your tippy toes and squeeze and contract the calves at the top for a full peak contraction. Hold that for a second. And then keep repeating. Full stretch, full peak contraction, full stretch, full peak contraction. And get outside that mid-range, because the calves are a very tough, dense muscle. And every time you take a step, every time you move, every time you do stuff, you're always doing little mini mid-range calf raises. Like, walking is hundreds of mini mid-range calf raises. And you want to get outside that mid-range to really stimulate maximum development. So getting into that full range of motion where you're fully stretching it, getting up into the peak contraction where you're fully contracting it, that's where you're going to provide that unique muscle stimulation that the calves are not accustomed to, and they're going to respond. So full range of motion, lighter weight, good form, and making sure that you're doing a straight leg calf raise and a bent leg calf raise. If you do that, boom, you got all your bases covered. And the calves respond better to shorter, more frequent workouts. So it's not like you're going to go into the gym and have a calf day, right? Like, spend an hour training calves. No, like, you're just going to do, a few sets of standing raises, a few sets of seated raises. Boom, that's it. You're done, right? So, like, do that 2 or 3 times a week, especially if your calves are stubborn. The more frequent you can hit them, the better. So stimulate, rest, recover, grow, stimulate, rest, recover, grow, and try and do that frequently. I'd recommend at least twice a week. And, once you're comfortable with that, then build up to 3 times a week. Straight up, skipped my question. Wait 20 minutes just to get skipped. What did you ask, Nicholas? I thought I went through everybody's question here. Now I'm going to just do a quick search to see if he says, I'm unsubscribing because you skipped my question. Well, I'm sorry if I pissed you off. All right. Where did it? I'm looking here. I don't even see his question anywhere, but I'm going to just give you the benefit of the doubt and scan through all the questions again to see if I missed it. Nope. No question. I think you're just pulling my leg because I just went through it. If anybody's watching this right now, do you see Nicholas Meyer's question? If you do, please let me know and type it into the bottom of the chat window, because I'm looking here and I don't see it. Nicholas is a troll. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Troll away, my friend. And people are saying, no, he didn't. You didn't ask a question. Blah, blah, blah. I didn't see it. Nope. All right. Well, we're going to finish off with Nicholas's no question. There, right? No question gets no answer. And we're going to finish the video chat at that. All right, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the chat. I always enjoy doing it. It's always nice to interact and chat and hopefully share some feedback and inspiration, knowledge, and tips and strategies to help you move in the right direction towards reaching your fitness and fat loss goals. Now, if you would like some help, or if you have any further questions on what I was talking about here, because I know we're kind of just scratching the surface. Like, I try the best that I can to help, but I know everyone's situation is unique, and sometimes I may not be diving into your individual situation. So if you would like some more help or you want to go deeper into anything we were talking about here, feel free to reach out to me, right? You can email me or you can book in for a strategy session call and I'll see if I can help you. And if you want then to discuss, more in-depth one-on-one coaching, then we can certainly discuss that as well. Because we have a whole private VIP coaching group, the Muscle After 40 Blueprint, and it's geared towards a more mature audience. Most of the guys in the group are men in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and family men, working professionals, guys who are trying to lose the gut, get back in shape, build lean muscle, and do so while juggling a full-time career, family, and responsibilities. And that's where I'm at this stage of the game. That's why I've created the Muscle After 40 Blueprint, because my fitness journey has transformed as I've transformed. Like back in my early days, it was all about, bulking up and bodybuilding. When I was competing in powerlifting, it was all about maximizing bench press strength and getting stronger and getting, peaking for powerlifting. Now that I'm in my 40s and, trying to raise a family and maintain health and longevity, that's my main focus. And that's where the Muscle After 40 Blueprint comes in. So if you're in that category, right, you want to be lean, healthy, enjoy the process, and just, not have the yo-yo diet and ups and downs and all the stress that goes along with fitness and a lot of the frustration and confusion, the BS that goes along with it. And you just want a simple, sustainable, realistic approach to get in shape and, more importantly, to stay in shape, then you might be a good fit for the whole Muscle After 40 Blueprint and joining our private VIP coaching community. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to have a chat with you. And in the meantime, have yourself a great day. Have yourself a great Friday the 13th. And I will talk to you next week, same time, same place. Remember, we go live at 5 on Friday. Have yourself a good one. Take care. Over and out.